What is up? What is up, fight fan faithful? Welcome in from Dana White's Contender Series. Matty just lost a bit of change in that main event. I'll let him tell you here in 1 second how it happened. But we are here after the Contender Series, as we are every Tuesday. We're breaking down this Saturday's fights. UFC Fight Night back at the Apex. UFC Vegas 79. We got Rafael Fiziev, Mateusz Gamrot in the main event. But I got to kick it over here to my man, the myth, the legend, Mattybetts. How you doing tonight, brother?
Holy shit, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Dude, this thunderstorming like crazy here in South Florida.
That's insane.
Yeah, but bro, I'm so pissed. I was about to be up big on Contender Series. I've ended up taking Shamil round 1 KO in that last fight of the night. Plus 115. I put $1,000 on it. He sits him down with the right 5 seconds into the fight and then finds a submission. It reminded me of Volkov Tuivasa. Gave me flashbacks of that bad beat. I'm sick of taking heavyweights by knockout, bro. I get the worst beats whenever I do that. I need to start taking inside the distance at this point.
Boy, I mean, I wish I took sub with how Velasco's submission defense looked there, man. It was pretty rough to watch.
It was bad. The round 1 sub was plus 450 or plus 550.
Yeah, I had Allen round 3 KO, and he almost got it. He was coming on there at the end. But Matty, let's put the Contender Series aside. You and I ultimately not diving too deep into that. Let's talk about Noche UFC and how last week went. Gotta admit, was not my best week. It was kind of a weird card where I was taking a lot of kind of weird props with some of the lopsided fights. We did hit Raul Rosas Jr. by knockout plus 470 in the first round. That was a good one. We had a bullshit draw in the main event that almost no one thinks should have been justified as a draw. You know, I think you and I both had it 2-2 going into the last round. So that last round went to Grasso. Thought we had Grasso decision, but ended up a lot of scorecard buffoonery. Kevin Holland didn't exactly come through. So overall, some highs and lows on the night.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, our prediction on Rosas Jr. was right on the money. That was a mispriced number. It was a great hit. The Kevin Holland bet in hindsight was a mistake. Yeah. Not because the dude couldn't win that fight, but because time and time again, he's like let me ask you a question. If someone had Kevin Holland's family hostage and they said, Kevin, no, I'm being serious. And they said, Kevin, you need to beat JDM. Would you bet on Kevin Holland? Because I would.
Yeah.
But the problem is he goes into these fights and he's not focused on winning. He's just focused on entertaining. And like, he's as durable as it gets. Like, he's not really going to get finished, you know, but like, he's just, where's the killer instinct? Where's the aggression? Like, it looked like a sparring match to me. It was very frustrating. Some people had Holland winning the fight. As someone who had money on Holland, I thought he lost 29-28. I agreed with the decision. In the main event, I thought Grasso won 2, 4, and 5. Obviously, the round 5 was bullshit, regardless of who you bet on, like that 10-8. There's no scenario where that was ever a 10-8 round for either fighter. Yep. But I did think Grasso did enough in round 4. I thought she should have got the nod 3 rounds of 2, but it was not a robbery. Valentina, a lot of people thought she won round 4. I felt it could have went either way.
For sure.
But again, I thought Grasso should have won the fight or could have won the fight. I'm not upset with the draw. I'm upset how it became a draw, right? Because the round 5, 10-8 was BS, but in hindsight, like, it was as close as a fight as it could get. So the fact that it came out a draw is not the worst thing in the world. But if you're Alexa Grasso, you got to be happy. You keep your belt. I mean, to me, that's a win. Yeah. So now she probably has to defend it again. We'll see what happens. Yeah. But I did okay on the night. I went up just over like 2. I went up about 2 1/4 units. The Rosas Jr. Carried a lot of the card, push on the main event. The Holland fight, little bit too much exposure there. I had 2 units on his money line and half a unit on the KO props. So, probably should have laid off a little bit on that with maybe a 1 unit play in hindsight, but it is what it is. We made a profit and we're moving on to the next week, and a lot of decent fights here.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I want to say about the judging scenario, there were 3 clear rounds in the fight. Grasso round 2, Shevchenko round 3, Grasso round 5. I think that's the problem with the current judging landscape in MMA and doing this like boxing, which has 9-12 round samples.
Yeah.
Mike Bell probably made a decision at that point in time that he did not want Valentina or Alexa Grasso to lose her belt when she had the most definitive rounds and the most definitive moments in the fight. That's, I think, the problem that UFC is going to have to address as it grows into sports. We're still in the leather helmet days of UFC. If you're talking NFL timeline, it'll be a long time until this sport is in that space. And that's something I think we've got to address.
I agree. And this comment right here, so Kevin looked bad because of Jack's defense. So I agree with that, but like, I mean, he kept such a high guard. Like he was super smart and tight with his boxing, but like Holland just didn't mix in any of his like full MMA game. Like the one time he attempted a takedown and then stood back up, he landed something. And I'm like, bro, you gotta be a full, mixed martial artist in this fight against JDM, and he just didn't do it, even though he said he would. So
maybe go to a tie clinch with his length as well. A lot of different. Yeah.
He's got to threaten just didn't do it. So frustrating. But we're on to the next week. We made some money last week. The parlay didn't cash, but
you did. I down a couple of units on my end, but it is what it is. I just took a lot of props that didn't hit. But you said, we are moving on to the next. I think is a pretty good card for an Apex card. We certainly could have done far worse. But this first fight up on the card isn't exactly a statement of fact with that, because we've got Tamiris Vidal, who is the lady here with the UFC start. She's taken on Montserrat Rendon, who is a total newcomer to the promotion. Rendon, kind of a regional veteran from Mexico, super durable. Interestingly, all 5 of her wins via decision. That's kind of almost hard to do on the regional scene with how lopsided some of the competition can be. Vidal, of course, coming off that insane flying knee on Ramona Pascual in her first fight. I wish it was a little longer so we learned more about her. But Tractor in Portuguese, one of my favorite nicknames in the sport. Maddie, you got anything on this guy? First fight up, not much experience, kind of hard to get a lead.
Yeah, no, I like that knee from Vidal. I rewatched that fight against Ramona. That was a sick knee. But again, you can't really get much or take much from it. I watched a little footage on her today. Like, she keeps her hands pretty low. Not a ton of great striking defense. I mean, this has got to be, to me, a dog or pass spot. I would not lay the juice on this favorite here. This girl, this girl's a dog. This girl's shredded, bro. Have you seen her?
Yes, I have. It's something you do not see often in this women's bantamweight, where she probably cuts water weight to get down to 135. She's big. She's 5'8". Like you said, she's shredded.
Yeah, she's absolutely shredded. She does have a pretty solid jab. She has some grappling matches. Not a lot you can do in this fight, in my opinion. I think it's dog or pass.
Yeah, I like Vidal. I think I do long term. I'm a little concerned. She barely defended anything in her first fight because Pascual has pillow hands, wasn't really a threat to actually do any damage. She was just trying to trade. The thing about Rendon that comes off to me on film when I watch her, she's very flat-footed. I feel like she kind of plods forward, and I feel like she gets discouraged with her wrestling very quickly. If she's not clean in on a shot, she'll give it up pretty quickly. I saw that a lot against Brittany Cloudy, who's kind of this regional veteran. Cloudy, by the way, has actually fought Erin Blanchfield. She's fought some legitimate girls. And Rendon and her went to a split decision that honestly could have gone against Rendon. So I do like Vidal to win this fight, which means I won't be betting Rendon in a dog or pass situation. So I guess that makes it a pass, right?
I respect it.
So we're not getting much better in this next one up on the card. Certainly mailed in the early ones here. Kind of an interesting comeback story at women's strawweight though here. Mizuki Inoue, last fight in UFC against Amanda Lemos, who of course just challenged for this division's title. So, a little bit of a promise about her experience in there, taking on shredded OnlyFans wonder Hannah Goldy, becoming a social media sensation for different reasons than inside of the octagon. Of course, she's now coming back off a year-long layoff. She was absolutely fed to Molly McCann in London last summer. No chance to win that fight up in weight. Really, a couple of long layoffs, not really high level here at strawweight. What are you thinking, bud?
Yeah, I mean, so this girl hasn't fought. She hasn't fought since she fought Amanda Lemos, right?
Nope, over 3 years ago.
3-year layoff, and then I think Hannah's on a 1.5-year layoff, isn't it?
Yeah, she is. And it's kind of interesting as to why, especially with Goldy. Inoue has had some injuries and things like that. I think the concerning thing for Mizuki Inoue, she hasn't had a lot of positive moments in her first 2 fights. You can kind of forgive Lemos because we know what Amanda has gone on to become. But Yanan Wu was her first fight, actually at flyweight on short notice. And she did not look very good in that fight either. Lost to Yanan Wu, who's since kind of phased out of the sport and was cut after a loss a couple years ago. So I kind of like Goldy here. I just see this number is too wide with all of the uncertainty. Goldy has a lot of power for this division. And Inoue, if you look at her inside the distance stoppages, they're almost exclusively arm bars. Hannah Goldy already with an armbar in UFC on Emily Whitmire. So I think if you hold up that test, you pass that in one space. This is kind of an ugly fight that I think could go either way. It's kind of like dog or pass like the first one, but I have a little bit more interest in Goldy here.
Yeah, Mizuki she got 9 submissions in her MMA career.
I'm pretty sure all of them are arm bars here. Let me see if I can find a definitive answer on that. I forgot.
Hannah Goldy has been submitted once.
Yes,
I believe so. Let me check that. But she got submitted.
Technical submission, armbar, submission, armbar. Yeah, every single submission on here is an armbar, which is kind of a low-level submission that you can kind of get through. But I think Goldy, at least from what we've seen from her so far, she got through Diana Belbito without suffering an armbar. And at Hannah Goldy's best, we've seen her pretty voluminous with her striking game. She's eclipsed 90 significant strikes in a couple of fights. So this woman, if you see her OnlyFans or if you see her social media, she's in impeccable shape. Big time power.
She had a win over Jillian Robertson in 2016.
Yeah. How old was Jillian at that point? She couldn't have been very old, but
no, I don't know how much stock you put into that. And then on the flip side, Mizuki fought Alexa Grasso in 2015.
Carolina Kovalkiewicz on there as well. So some interesting regional competition for both of these ladies. By the way, all of those fights, Goldy beat Robertson, but Inoue lost to Kovalkiewicz and Grasso. Well, this was years ago. So
if you get plus money here on the fight to not go the distance, what do you think about that? These girls on layoffs, a lot of uncertainty.
I kind of like that. Yeah, and I think it'll be priced appropriately that way. Goldy has been the distance in all but one of her wins, as well as Inoue has not been finished in either of her UFC appearances. Again, taking on Ramos, who was pretty superior. So I don't think Hannah Gold, I would say that this fight most of the time goes the distance, but if we get like plus 180 or some fat number on the under, these girls haven't been in there forever. One of them could quit. One of them could cardio dump. There could be a lot of things that happen that I'd for sure listen to the under.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I want to see what that number. I want to see if I can find an early number on that because that honestly intrigues me. We'll come back to it, but I do want to see.
We'll see if we can get through. But I think we start to get a little bit better here in this next fight up on the card. A little bit more UFC data anyway. Former Ultimate Fighter winner, brother of the former welterweight champion, Mohammed Usman, the motor, taking on my guy, Jake Collier, Jake Blue Collier guy. You and I talked about, I am plugging the OnlyFans hard because if you search Hannah Goldy on Twitter, all you find is about her OnlyFans. You don't actually find anything about fighting.
Use code Austin for 10% off her OnlyFans.
I don't even have an account. I have not subscribed to OnlyFans. I am loyal and faithful to my girlfriend. Okay, I want that on the record. But you and I were going back and forth about this fight earlier, Maddie. There's some breaking news that you have about Jake Collier that our listeners can get right here for the first time if they haven't seen it already. What do we have about Jake Collier?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull this picture up. I can't put it on the screen, I don't think, but I did text it to you.
I'll spoil it. I was
blown away by this picture on Twitter today.
Guys, Jake Collier is not fat anymore. He was going through his training camp, and he looks lean and mean. At Jake Collier 88 is his Twitter handle that you and I found this from. Jake Collier looks noticeably thinner. And there he's got in the middle. You can Maddie, you can see that pretty well on the broadcast. Definitely thinner. And this is a guy that was a former middleweight in UFC. He's fought at light heavyweight in UFC. And let's be honest, he's ballooned up for the wrong reasons since he returned in 2020 against Tom Aspinall. That 230-pound marker is just the official listed weight from UFC. We'll see what he comes in at. He came in at 265 in his last fight. I am willing to bet a lot of money it's much, much, much lower than that now
100%.
Based on the shape that he's in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree here. And I think that the fact that this dude's going to be leaner and in better shape fighting for his UFC career, I think that could open up a lot of long shot opportunities in this fight.
Agreed.
Like I was starting to look at some of those early numbers here. We know Usman is going to wrestle.
Yeah.
And he's going to throw big bombs probably in the first round. But Jake Collier probably has a better overall skill set in this fight. If he comes in better shape, I mean, Muhammad Usman had to hold on for dear life against Junior Tafa. Like, I think if that fight happens 10 times, I think he probably gets slept 8 or 9.
Yes.
And he held on for dear life and somehow edged out a decision. I mean, he was wobbled on his feet, and then he would get those takedowns. And I'll tell you one thing, if Muhammad Usman is on top of you, good luck getting up. And that's the one concern I have in this fight, because we've seen Jake Collier on bottom against, was it Chris Barnett?
Well, in that point, that fight's a little tough with the context, because Collier, of course, had Barnett badly hurt with the eye socket in the first round, was trying to finish him, totally gassed out. Barnett came back for that big win, and I think.
And by the way, I was in Vegas at the staying at the Circa.
Yeah,
I had no action on that fight. The fight was about to start in 3 minutes. I run over to the kiosk. I put $500 on Barnett by knockout, and
You're
hit
insane.
it.
You're
and
insane.
I didn't handicap the fight, nothing. I was just being a total degenerate. I'm like, I'm taking the dog here by knockout, and it hit, and it was absolutely hysterical. I was watching it on my iPad at dinner. I couldn't believe I hit that bet. It was so funny. But no, I think Jake Collier is a live dog here. I really do. I won't be surprised if he gets taken down and Usman lands ground and pound and gets him out of there. But I want to hear your opinion on this. Now, these numbers are not available on most of the sports books, including FanDuel right now. But I was kind of looking around online and seeing, like, hey,
unnamed shady book.
Yeah. So hear me out here. If Muhammad Usman does not get him out of here, he's going to be the bigger guy. He's going to get tired, and he's going to wrestle.
Yep.
Jake Collier. Now, this sounds crazy. Round 2 submission is 25-1. Round 3 submission is 35-1 odds.
That's not crazy at all, because we've seen Collier wrestle. We've seen Collier. He had a submission on Chase Sherman a couple of years ago. Totally just pulled the chute, and we thought that was going to be a striking battle. Collier's got skills. He was a middleweight in UFC, and he was a winner at middleweight. So, like, you can't be one of these unskilled heavyweights. Really, it's been about his physique. And you look at Muhammad Usman, pretty bad for a 2-fight winning streak in UFC. He was getting lit up by Zach Pauga in the Ultimate Fighter finale, ends up finding a haymaker with a left hand in the second round that was just a total prayer. And then, like you said, the Junior Tafa fight, when I look at this guy's offensive efficiency, he's got a 27% striking accuracy, 15% takedown accuracy. He's not getting anything done. He was just simply
striking is hideous looking. Just on the eye test. I'm glad you brought up the numbers, because I didn't know what the numbers were. Yeah. But when I watch this guy strike, it reminds me of, like, a D tackle trying to box.
Yes.
Like, or someone you pull right off a football field and they try striking for their first time. I mean, it's really ugly. Now, that said, the dude is a specimen. He can come out there and just land one shot, get one takedown, and just be way bigger and way stronger.
Yeah. But I like Collier's durability, though. He's only been finished in the first round at heavyweight by Tom Aspinall. So he's been very tough. He just went the distance with Martin Budai. You and I had Budai in that fight. We sweat that big time because Collier was tough, and he was around through his own conditioning. If Jake Collier doesn't have conditioning issues, his ceiling in heavyweight is much, much higher than this fight with Muhammad Usman. I really like him in this fight.
Yeah, and a lot of people think he won that Andrei Arlovsky split decision. That was a very close fight.
He also beat Carlos Felipe years ago in a split decision. And typically, I know Action Network is very famous for this with their luck rankings in MMA. Split decisions are typically something you want to fade moving forward, because it's just a bit of a lucky element, and the promotion matches based on wins and losses.
Yeah. So, all right. So someone asked under 2.5. I don't know what the number is.
Yeah, we'll have to see the number.
I think the one thing that concerns me is if you're going to pay heavy juice on that, we know that Usman is capable of just wrestling his way to a decision. But with that said, I'm going to take a heavy look at those Jake Collier round 2 and 3 props. I want to see what the TKO is. The submission numbers were astronomical. Maybe this is a scenario where I need to stop being a greed box and just take the in-round props and not the in-round by exact method props, which have really backfired on me this past week. And you even warned me on it on the last show. I took Lupi Godinez round 2 knockout plus 1,600, and she, oh my God, I still can't believe I lost that bet. She landed so much on the feet, had Elise Reed so hurt.
I mean, she had her
for whatever reason, someone commented on my videos that Lupi Godinez told her whole family to bet the submission prop because that's what it felt like because she had the TKO every single way she could have wanted it on the ground, on the feet. She then submits her. If in hindsight, hindsight's 2020 at the end of the day, but if I would have had the in-round prop, it was still a nice number. It was probably, if it was 16-1 on the KO, I mean, that's probably 7 or 8-1 just to win in the round, right? So maybe this is a scenario where I look at a Jake Collier round 2 or 3. If he can avoid some of the takedowns and kind of just poke at Muhammad Usman and shows cardio, and Usman tires a little, he is live in this fight.
I prefer the submission to the knockout because Usman's been getting lit up pretty badly in his first 2 fights and showed a really nice chin. So Collier, not the heaviest punching heavyweight to begin with. I said the dude's basically a middleweight that's just blown up and fat, right? So not a lot of power from Collier. I think if we get a big number on the over, I'd be more interested in that. Honestly, it just really does depend where that number lies. So let's move on. We've spent way too much time on a low level heavyweight fight. Looking at the biggest favorite on the card here. Next up, Robert Whittaker's boy Jacob Malkoun, really, really close to a darn near perfect UFC career thus far, taking on one of the worst fight IQs you'll find anywhere in the sport in Cody Brundage from my backyard here at Factory X. Brundage, I got to be hard on him after that performance in Jacksonville. Really jumped guillotine over and over and over again. It was pretty much his only move that he had that he thought he was going to get Cedric Dumas out of there. Malkoun just keeps chugging along. Took down Nick Maximov 9 times. Had that weird split decision with Brendan Allen where I thought Malkoun won the fight. It is a really lopsided fight on paper, Matty. What are you thinking here?
By the way, do you remember what I had in the Dumas fight?
Yeah, Dumas by decision. I wish I tailed you on it.
Dumas by decision plus 1,000 against Cody Brundage. I still can't believe that hit. No, I mean, look, this fight is crazy to me that Jacob Malkoun's minus 530. Now, that said, I think he's going to go out there and probably finish him because I don't think Brundage has anything left. But minus 530 is a crazy number here. It really, really is, in my opinion. Malkoun has 0 finishes in the UFC, I believe. And I think
he doesn't have a win by finish yet.
Yeah, and he's also as good as his wrestling is. Like, what do you think about his submission abilities? Because I haven't really seen anything slip. I think that he could get like a late TKO in this fight that could pay pretty well.
Yeah, I think TKO might be slightly more likely. We've only seen 0.5 submission attempts per 15 minutes, so it's not super high volume from Malkoun where he's trying for it. I do look at his opponents, though. AJ Dobson, Brendan Allen, Nick Maximov. These guys are great grapplers in their own right? And he may not have had a grappling advantage there. I would say Cody Brundage's jiu-jitsu is not bad either. And Brundage, by the way, rocking a 73% takedown defense thus far. Now, with that said, Maximov landed 4 takedowns on Cody Brundage. Dumas was really able to do whatever he wanted to get him to the ground. Cody Brundage put himself there by jumping guillotine both against Dumas and Rodolfo Vieira. So will Brundage be able to resist his urge to jump guillotine in this fight and not put himself right on the bottom of Malkoun, I think is the question. But we really haven't seen a lot of Malkoun stand up either. Knocked out in his UFC debut by Phil Hawes. He's been able to just grind guys since over 63% of the fight controlled in 4 straight. So
do you have his striking numbers? Because I wanted to ask you that because I really do think that Brundage's chin might be close to gone.
Yeah, and Brundage, by the way, just a 46% striking defense, which is kind of a red flag for a knockout. I think he's very, very chinny and very there to be hit. Malkoun, 55% striking accuracy, 50% defense thus far, but in a very, very limited distance sample. So we can only take so much of that weight. I like Malkoun here. I hope that we get a good number on his inside the distance prop because he hasn't found a finish yet. The dude dominated Brendan Allen. And Cody Brundage is a moron. Moreover, he's a bit of a gas bag where he can really drain himself out, gets incredibly tired. I just don't think Brundage makes good decisions, man. He had Vieira hurt on the feet, but Malkoun is much more responsible defensively than Rodolfo at this point.
Yeah, it almost feels like the UFC's done with Brundage, and they're like, hey, take this fight if you want to fight.
I think they're making him fight through it. That Dumas performance was pretty embarrassing, and he's had his only moments, kind of a flash knockout of Tresean Gore, right? And then he gets hurt early, rocked by Dolce Lungambula. Lungambula ends up throwing that fight away in a similar way that Brundage has. So not good level of competition for his wins at this point. And I don't think you're thinking about betting on Brundage, are you?
No, I'm not. I think if you're going to take him, you take the round 1 KO flyer.
Yep.
We saw Malkoun lose in round 1 to Phil Hawes. And if there's maybe Brundage just comes in here desperate. He's like, hey, my career is done in the UFC. But maybe it isn't if I come in here and flatline this dude in the first round. Yep. I think if you're going to take Brundage as a dog here, that's the route you go. But I think that Malkoun's going to get a late round 2 or 3 TKO here. Yep. I think you're going to get good numbers on that too, because he has 0 finishes in the UFC. So I think from a value standpoint, this could look good. It looks like right now, Malkoun by decision is by far the most likely outcome, and then the submission is slightly more favored to happen than the knockout.
Yeah.
So the knockout is the most gives you the best return on if you're taking Malkoun in a certain way. And I think I don't think Malkoun's the guy that's going to come out and finish Brundage in the first round. Do you?
No. But the thing that also we want to keep in mind, just like we saw in the Contender Series, this guy's been in UFC now for a couple of years. We haven't really seen him strike a lot. He's training almost every day with Robert Whittaker at this exact same weight class, man. Like, inevitably his striking is going to be better than the last time we saw it against Phil Hawes. Whereas, I don't think Brundage hits hard, but his striking fundamentals, especially his defense, are not particularly great. I agree with you. I think this is more of a fight where Malkoun wilts him over like round 2, round 3, because that's Malkoun's style. He hasn't broken some of the tougher guys that he's fought in before, but Brundage is a guy that'll quit. He all but quit in that Dumas fight. If Cedric knew how to pull off a rear naked choke, he would have finished him, right? So
bro, Malkoun, round 2 and 3, KO props are sitting around 11-1 and 15-1.
Yeah, those are great numbers for a -530 favorite who hasn't shown a lot of submission volume. That's great value there.
That'll probably make my card. I'm excited to see whatever the FanDuel numbers end up at there.
So great, really interesting fight there, and I think this one is much well. I think Maddie and I might be split on it, but that's all right. Welterweight here. Tim Means taking on Andre Fialho, of course, the Dirty Bird, coming off that second round submission loss to a guy that you and I highly value in Alex Morono. Also fought Kevin Holland recently. I'm spacing Means' middle opponent in between those two. He was pretty good too. It means Max Griffin. Max Griffin's been
it was a close fight.
Yeah, it was a close fight with Griffin. It was a split decision. So Means is on a 3-fight streak where it's just kind of tough and not going his way. Fialho, you could say the same thing. 3-fight skid. He's been knocked out now. Joaquin Buckley got him in his last fight, as well as Fialho was also put out by I'm blanking. Jake Matthews put him out, and I'm forgetting.
Yeah, and then Muslim
Salikov. Yeah, that's correct. Muslim Salikov.
So I think all 3 guys are good. All good fighters. That's the thing about both these guys is they're on skids, but the competition has been pretty solid. Not elite competition, but solid competition. Fialho is a guy I can't figure out, bro. Yeah. So when he came into the UFC, I was at his fight live, and I took him by knockout against Cameron Van Camp, and I thought he was the next big thing, right? Yep. And then after he beats Van Camp, right after that fight, or right before that fight was the Miguel Baeza fight. I had him by knockout in that fight too. So I'm like, all right, I got this guy twice in a row on the knockout props. I'm gonna keep riding him. Next thing you know, Jake Matthews comes in, who nobody really expected Jake Matthews to look like the far better striker in that fight. Yep. And I think that's where Fialho had to go back to the drawing board. He's training at Kill Cliff, right?
Okay.
Which is right in my backyard here.
Yep.
And I think he's improved a lot, even in his losses. I think he's looked more patient. In his fight against Joaquin Buckley, I thought he looked really patient in round 1. I remember what I bet on that fight. I took either guy to get a round 2 knockout.
Yep,
because I remember that. It was good enough for me I felt had enough value on it, and I ended up hitting it on Buckley. But Fialho, this is a very tough fight to predict, because one way I look at it is like Fialho really should not be a 2-1 favorite against a veteran like this that has 35 wins in his career and has beaten good competition, right? The other way I look at it is like Tim Means almost made for Fialho to have success, because and I don't know, I tried carefully saying that, but I think Fialho is going to have success on the feet in this fight from a striking standpoint. But you tell me the numbers. You're the expert. I need to hear this, because I keep going back and forth on this fight a ton.
So we're a bit split. I've donated on Tim Means a lot, but I'm going to do it one last time here, which, by the way, I mean, I don't know if he ended up losing, especially inside the distance this week. I don't know how long Means will be for the promotion. He's almost 40 at this point, but he hasn't really been chin checked. In fact, he arguably won the first round against Morono with the striking. I've always felt he was a little underrated. He has a plus 1.32 striking success rate, which is basically per minute, damage out minus damage in. He's been very efficient with an excellent 60% striking defense. Really hasn't shown chin issues. I mean, Kevin Holland knocked him out, but we talked last week about Holland's power. Yeah, club and sub.
Choke, yeah.
Yep. Right. So Means has been a little susceptible to those submission threats. Obviously, not getting that from Fialho, but I like him here because he's the more diverse striker. He'll use his kicks, he'll use elbows. He's willing to work in the clinch. Whereas Fialho is a really great boxer. That's what he does well: is work with his hands. Doesn't throw a lot of volume with his kicks. Isn't really comfortable operating in a clinch position. It really, when Fialho is at his best, is exactly how that Miguel Baeza fight looked. It was a boxing match at distance. Means is kind of a grinder. He'll put you up against the cage. He'll elbow you in the face. He's tough. He's got great striking defense. Like, I see Tim Means putting a lot of volume on Fialho. I don't know if he gets him out of there because Means hasn't shown a lot of fight-ending power himself. Mm-hmm. But as long as Means' chin holds into his 40-year-old, going into 40 years old, I think he wins going away here on the cards.
You know what's funny is I literally texted a fighter from Killcliff. Yeah. And I said, tell me about Andre Fialho. He hasn't shown any submission threats or jiu-jitsu or anything, but does he have that in his back pocket?
Yeah.
Because honestly, I'm so curious about that because look at Tim Means. He doesn't get knocked out, but look who he's lost to by submission. Mm-hmm. Morono, round 2 guillotine choke. I hit that bet at plus 2,500, by the way. Kevin Holland, Darce choke. Daniel Rodriguez, standing guillotine choke.
Yep.
Alex Oliveira, rear naked choke. Matt Brown, guillotine choke. Like, when this dude loses, it's by decision or submission. Like, he's not getting, like you said it, he's good striking defense, and he has a good chin. You know, now granted, he's 39 years old.
That could go at any time.
100%. So, but I was looking at it and I'm like, I wonder what the sub props would pay. But it's, again, I don't know that, and I haven't even heard back. I don't know if Fialho even possesses that. We haven't seen anything that would even allude to him having those threats in his game. So, yeah. But I got the degenerate inside of me. I have to at least look at those numbers and see what it is. Because, I mean, what would you make that submission prop to be at? It's got to be a huge number.
Oh, my God. I mean, like, at this point, I think you could put it 50-1. 0 career submission attempts, anything like that. By the way,
I think he has 1 submission.
Yeah. But by the way, on his record, was it regionally?
So it says he has 1 submission, but then I scroll down and I don't see where it is on Tapology.
You got to go back to like 2014 against some bum regionally. And got a rear naked choke.
I mean, 100% he would have to hurt him for to have any chance at it.
Here is why I generally fade Fialho. You look at his 2 wins; they're just 3 and 5 in UFC, and he's got a card worst negative 2.57 striking success rate. So on average, when these two clash, Tim Means will be about 3.8 significant strikes per minute better than Fialho based on their historical numbers. Now, Andre's data is a little messy because he got Michel Pereira on short notice in his debut. That was a horrible assignment, right? And he's fought some really great guys. Tim Means, though, with how big his sample is, I don't see striking success rates that large very often. Like, this guy, just a few years ago, he tattooed and beat up Nicholas Dalby, who now is kind of on a run in the same division. So they're both fighting really good competition. Means is performing better. That really gives me a lot of confidence. I really think it's chin or bust to a point where I might hedge with Fialho round 1, round 2 knockout and make this a multi-unit play on Means money line, and then I just hedge it out.
I'm really torn on this fight, bro. I really, really am.
I definitely want to hear back from some of my film guys about this because I'm still waiting to see what they think because I don't know anything technically about MMA hardly. So I ask people that are a lot smarter and can see that stuff better than I can. Yeah. But I like Means, especially when I look at my data here.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing that concerns me is Means towards the tail end of his career. And I do think Fialho, with the people he's surrounded himself with and the progression I've seen just on the eye test alone, I do think he's as good as he's ever been. And I do think he looked really good in round 1 against Buckley. Like, I mean, he got landed 26. I forget what the first round numbers were, but it was a very competitive first round.
Right.
And then he just put his hands down for 1 second and took like a head kick in that second round.
Yeah.
But again, the only reason I said in the beginning of this breakdown why I thought this is a good matchup for him is because I don't think Means is going to be able to take as big of an advantage with the striking defense of Fialho as some of the guys he's fought. Right.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. So my mind was going towards the fact like, okay, if Means can't capitalize on the mistakes of Fialho, maybe Fialho will have enough time to then find the finish on the feet.
Yeah. This could be a pendulum fight as well, where Means is winning minutes. He's got more volume and he's winning. Fialho lands a bomb and steals the round, right? It could be that type of mistake as well, because Fialho's knockdown rate is much higher at this point. So really good fight there at welterweight. I think an intriguing one that I find a little bit less intriguing. I just have general frustrations with one of the dudes here, but these guys have won. Well, I guess Argueta now wasn't a 2-time winner because actually Dan Argueta was robbed by that terrible Keith Peterson stoppage in his fight against Ronnie Lawrence. He had the submission locked in. Peterson waved it off too quickly, so it ended up being reversed to a no contest, just like last week we saw with Edgar Chairez and Daniel Lacerda. Argueta's back here. He's taking on a Fortis MMA guy we've seen for years here, and Miles Chapo Johns. Both of these guys right in their fighting primes of their career, training at good gyms. Maddie, do you have a significant lean on this guy with Argueta about a 2-1 favorite?
Yeah, I mean, this fight to me is, I like the dog, 92% takedown defense.
Yeah.
And I get plus 150 on him. I do think he can maybe win a decision. I want to see what that decision prop is. I haven't spent enough time on film in this fight yet. Definitely don't have an official pick here, but initial instinct was dog or pass for me. But again, I haven't spent nearly enough time on this one, so I'll defer to you here.
Yeah, I have a tenuous relationship with Miles Johns. It's just because his offense is so low level that he is barely squeaking by guys like Vince Morales. If you want to waste 15 minutes of your life, go watch Miles Johns fight against Cole Smith, where Cole Smith is hanging on his back for like 8 minutes of the fight doing nothing. It's just a lot of stagnation. Now, with that comes Johns' excellent 69% striking defense, excellent 92% takedown defense, as you mentioned. I just wonder how much of that is his level of competition. The guys that he's beaten in UFC, they're 5-14 overall with the promotion. So he's beaten up on a lot of cans. We just saw Argueta go toe-to-toe, and I think Sebastian's comment there is dead on. We saw Miles Johns gassed, exhausted against John Castaneda. We saw him knocked out second round flying knee by Mario Bautista, right? He has been more vulnerable the later fights have gone, the more that he has been exhausted, and Argueta was putting a hellish pace on Ronnie Lawrence. I don't like dudes with unreliable gas tanks unless I'm getting elite offense in front of it. I don't think I get either with Johns. So I would almost default to Argueta here by default. I wouldn't feel good about laying his money line, but this is a spot, Maddie, where I think your ears are going to perk up. I love that round 2, round 3 melting dynamic in this fight where Argueta puts a pace on Miles Johns where he just doesn't keep up.
Yeah, I'm looking at John's competition.
Yeah.
I mean, the two good guys he's fought, he got finished in round 2 and 3. He fought Adrian Yanez, but that was in 2018.
And Yanez would be a good matchup for Johns because of his elite striking defense. Yanez kind of a winger. He wings a lot of punches, kind of an inefficient striker on paper. Johns is a good matchup for a lot of dudes that are not willing to put a lot of offense out there because he's simply better than a lot of them technically and defensively. You got to put something out there yourself, though, right? He's gotten a couple of knockouts against guys, Anderson Dos Santos, low-level guys. But I don't feel that way about Dan Argueta. Argueta comes in on short notice at featherweight, goes the distance with Damon Jackson, dominates Nick Aguirre, really stops Ronnie Lawrence in the first round if Keith Peterson knew how to referee. So I feel that Argueta is in a good spot. Now, you sometimes see Argueta on tape get tired himself. I would not worry about that here. I think that Johns will be wearing the pace of this fight much more than Argueta, given that his gas tank has to be like 5th percentile worse at bantamweight UFC. The guy just gets tired so quickly doing so little.
What do you think, like a round 2 or 3 sub?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Castaneda subbed him, if I'm correct, Maddie, if you have his record pulled up, and then Bautista knocked him out. Johns is a good defensive grappler. Like, he was able to stall Cole Smith in that fight and keep him off him. I think I'd probably go. You could go submission because Argueta is at 1.9 submission attempts per 15 minutes. That's elite volume for this division. So really, with how much he was going on Lawrence, who's a similar guy, good defensive grappler, I think I'd probably lean sub there, bud.
Yeah. He got put in an arm triangle in round 3.
Yeah.
And then his loss to Bautista was the flying knee.
The round 3 there doesn't even sell it because Miles Johns was hanging on for dear life from like the 3-minute mark of the second round. Like, the fact that he made it to the third was a testament to his toughness. And I've mentioned this on this show before. Fortis MMA, not a gym that I love. I don't love the game plans. I think they ruined Brandon Moreno, and Moreno is sloppier now than he was when he was training over with James Krause before the betting scandal and everything. Mm-hmm. I don't love Fortis. And Miles Johns is one of their marquee athletes.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to rewatch some tape on this fight for sure, but I think you've halfway sold me, so maybe I can get the other halfway there.
Why don't we go further where hopefully I can sell you? Because coming up onto this main card, we've actually got 4 fights that I was able to run my model for. So we've got some concrete data to look at now. My model didn't do amazing with Kevin Holland. It's just a data model, so it's just food for thought. It's not everything, but I have one here in this fight. Featherweight, little bit of a low-key banger here between Ricardo Ramos, guy with a lot of fun spinning back fist finishes, taking on Charles Jourdain, who's had some really awesome fights in UFC. Good submission guy, high-paced striker, maybe some would say Canada's best hope for a UFC title one day. Matty, really, really interesting fight here between these guys. I think you're going to hear sharp guys on both sides of this fight, but what are you thinking?
Oh, I like Charles Jourdain, man, but not in this fight, but in general. And
why do you like Ramos is an interesting thing, because I've heard a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, no, I don't know that I like either side here. It's more about, like, I just think Charles Jourdain is very entertaining. I mean, he put a pace on Burgos. I think he tripled the volume in that fight, and he still lost a decision. That fight still hasn't really aged that well, though. I think with Burgos leaving the UFC and then losing a couple times, and the Nathaniel Wood fight, he loses a unanimous decision.
Taking down
Gracie, he couldn't finish. It's just, he got finished in round 3 by Julian Erosa. I mean, I would have to lean dog here, but I don't know. I want to see what the over-under is priced at in this fight too.
Yeah, can you flash up Sebastian's comment about still being a toss-up? How about this? The closest fight of my model for all of 2023, I've got Ramos 50.2%, Jourdain 49.8%. So it's almost 50-50 exactly in this fight, which obviously would provide a little value on Ricardo Ramos, right? Yeah. I think Jourdain's a really easy guy to handicap. If you've got a guy that's really good with his takedowns, you take the opponent. If he's not a guy that really uses his takedowns, then you take Jourdain, because Jourdain's an excellent striker, plus 1.48 striking success rate, but his 48% takedown defense is his kryptonite. And he escaped Lando Venata, got a guillotine. It was actually a one-armed guillotine choke, right? But he got taken down in that fight, got taken down over and over and again by Nathaniel Wood. Andre Fili took him down over and over again. Like, it is a consistent pattern for how Jourdain loses. I think he's got too much faith in his jiu-jitsu against a guy in Ricardo Ramos, who's also a black belt. And we've seen Ramos go to his wrestling. He took Bill Algeo down 8 times. I actually think the striking in this fight might be a bit more lopsided than people think. Ramos does a lot of that spinning stuff that is pretty, and he's had some highlight knockouts, but he's not actually very efficient on paper. -0.5 striking success rate. So I think it's a total wrestler versus grappler dynamic here. But my process fade has been kind of to fade Charles Jourdain in any scenario where he could get taken down over and over again. Ramos 2.58 takedowns per 15. I think that's it. I like Ramos at plus money, especially when he said he was going to go to his wrestling and jiu-jitsu against Austin Lingo. That fight never ended up happening, but Ramos knowing that he had to grapple in that fight gives me confidence that he knows he'll have to grapple here.
Yeah, Ramos by decision is going to land at like plus 350-ish.
Yeah, the total will be very interesting in this fight. Jourdain, lower knockdown rate than you might think, 0.72%. It's not very high for featherweight. Both of these guys are actually sub 1%. So there's not a lot of power here. Ramos has gotten a couple of spinning things, but I think Jourdain's too high level of a striker for something like that to connect.
Yeah. No, as I said, I want to see what this over is. I think it's looking like a pick 'em as far as fight to go the distance versus not go the distance.
Well, my model has 60.7% to go the distance. So about 60-40, it goes the distance.
Great value on the over 100%. I really like the Ramos by decision prop. The more we've talked through this, I think you get that at plus 325 or better.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think
number.
Jourdain got his black belt since the last time he was submitted in UFC, and he just had that 15-minute fight with Crone Gracie where he passed all of the tests. So I don't think he's really a guy that's prone to getting subbed at this point.
I like it.
So, good fight there. And then an interesting fight that has kind of somewhat captivated gambling Twitter, MMA Twitter, whatever you want to call it here. Another former Ultimate Fighter contestant, Bryan Battle. Pooh Bear's taking on AJ Fletcher. AJ, the Ghost Fletcher, kind of a Louisiana guy. Interestingly enough, Fletcher moved to Factory X for this camp. So he's training kind of in my backyard here in Inglewood with Mark Montoya and the guys. Both of these guys still young, developing. They've had a couple of nice wins at this stage, a couple of nice performances, also a couple of not so nice performances. You can see some of the difference in the measurables. Bryan Battle bringing in a 10-inch reach advantage here.
Insane.
Which is kind of nuts, but that's because Battle, used to fight at middleweight. I think he fought at middleweight on The Ultimate Fighter. Fletcher, very, very stocky. I'd say he's on the low end of a welterweight by frame, but he's a little bit of a wrestler. Kind of an interesting matchup here. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, so I think Bryan Battle's reach is going to be really big in this fight.
Yeah.
I also think that, by the way, bro, I don't know if you remember this, but the Bryan Battle Gabe Green fight, I took that fight to get a distance and it ended in 14 seconds.
Stupidest game plan of 2023. Gabe Green just rushed forward and got himself knocked out.
That may have been the worst bet of my entire betting career. I couldn't believe it. Two very durable guys.
Yep.
Ian Gary couldn't finish Gabe Green. Gabe Green marches forward with no respect for Bryan Battle, and he gets countered and put out cold. I was sick about that. Here's what I'll say about Bryan Battle.
Yeah.
He went the distance with Fakardinov, bro, which I'm very high on that guy. I'm very high on him. And I think this dude has all the like, I think he has a really good physical skill set. Like, he has that 10-inch reach advantage. He's the taller guy. He has good striking. I even think the submission prop will be live here. I do think AJ. I like this fight to not go the distance.
Yeah,
I think one way or the other. I want to see what that's priced at because I think AJ Fletcher is going to come forward. He has to get in the pocket in this fight, maybe mix in the takedowns, but I think that's going to leave submission opportunities for both guys. I can see this fight ending in submission one way or the other.
Yeah, dude, so let me make my case here from one of my favorite underdogs on the card with Fletcher here. This is an intriguing fight where Battle's reach will help him on the feet, but it's actually going to be really tough to defend takedowns with how lanky he will be compared to Fletcher's center of gravity.
Kind of like Gamrot versus Jalen Turner.
Yeah, exactly. Gamrot had the leverage in that position because of how big Jalen Turner was. Fletcher's this short, stocky guy, very strong though, could pick him up. Stand on his head, and he's shown great punching power. He nearly finished Ange Lusa, who's a guy you and I really like, right? That was with his hands, where he did let that left hook go and nearly finished him. When I look at Battle, you said he went the distance with Fakardinov. Agreed that it's somewhat of an accomplishment, but he was also controlled for all but 49 seconds of that fight. So it was a total rout. You and I are both very high on Fakardinov. I don't really hold it against Battle, but he does have a 38% takedown defense exiting that. And that is a concern against a guy like Fletcher, who chained a bunch of takedowns together on Matt Semmelsberger, was able to get a couple on Ange Lusa. So he's fought, in my opinion, tougher competition than Battle has to this point. And I think it's a good matchup where Battle was really uncomfortable off his back in that fight. He does have good submissions off his back, Matty, so I don't think that's a bad look. Battle by submission, and he'll just have much longer arms to wrap around things. I imagine that's particularly helpful in jiu-jitsu to be able to just
that's the main reason I like him, because I know Fletcher. Not that I like Battle, because I don't like him on the money line. I think it's expensive in this fight. But the submission prop. I mean, he submitted Petrosky in 2021 with that ninja choke in round 2. I mean, that's a good submission win against a guy that has good wrestling. So, I don't know. This is, I think, one of the more intriguing fights of the entire night here. I've seen a lot of people on both sides. I've seen people that like Battle are super confident. Yeah. And usually that doesn't age well when people are so confident on a favorite. So you might be onto something here. But I do want to see what the price is on this fight to not go the distance.
I will also throw out there Brian Battle's striking defense, also 40%. I talked about 46% being a red flag for a knockout. 40% is very, very low. And at this stage, you know, Trayshawn Gore was a guy that he had a lot of time at distance against. He knocked out Takashi Sato in the first minute of the fight. He's got 2 knockouts in the first minute of the fight, so I haven't really gotten a lot of data on Battle yet. That's super quality. This is UFC matchmakers have struck gold with this. It'll be a great test for both guys.
Yeah, so right now the fight to not go the distance is sitting around -160.
I still think that's fair, man. Like, just based, well, you think of Battle's power that's ended fights in minutes. Also, Fletcher, ton of power, 1.1 submission attempts per 15. Like, these guys are finishers.
This might be a spot to bet the fight to end in 60 seconds.
Yeah, it might
Bro,
be.
You know, I had multiple people DM me. So when we took Rosas Jr. round 1 knockout, I've had multiple people DM me the ticket where they had either guy to win in the first 2 minutes, and it was 12-1 odds. They hit.
Did it hit? Oh, yeah. It did hit. Nice.
Yeah, he won in under a minute in that fight.
Oh man, it felt like a long time that he was beating on Terrence Mitchell, to be honest with you. So cool. Yeah, I think good fight there, and like you said, could be a first minute type of fight. Fletcher does have to get right into the pocket. If he's going to stay at kickboxing range, he's going to get his face taken off.
Yeah, and his left hook could land.
Yeah.
I'm starting to really lean towards this under. I think if you get it under 2.5, you're going to pay versus just the fight not to go the distance.
Yeah,
I can see that number at -140, or no, it'd be higher. Wait, what did I say it was earlier? Fight not to go the distance.
-160.
Yeah, so I think you just have to stick with that fight to not go the distance, or you go under 2.5 and get a better number on it. So
yes, so we go from that captivating battle to a rematch of a fight none of us wanted to see again, because this was a main event back in 2021. I have no idea why the UFC is running it back, because it doesn't really do much for the title picture in the division whatsoever here. Marina Rodriguez. What'd you say?
It's a weird fight, weird matchup.
It is a weird matchup. We already saw it, right? Marina Rodriguez had a +35 striking differential against Waterson. She won 4 rounds to 1 pretty clearly across all the cards. I do have enough data to run my model here, so we'll get to that in 1 second. A little weird that Rodriguez is -340 when, Waterson did show that she has the ability to win rounds against Rodriguez with her grappling a little bit. But, these are 2 women north of 35 years old, likely declining, both of them entering unsignificant losing streaks. This is a weird fight to remake, and it almost makes me wonder if I'm missing something.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I don't know how Michelle Waterson can win this fight, though. I know you said you think she can win rounds, but I don't really think she has anything for Marina in this fight. The whole thing is weird to me, though. I just don't.
It's really an interesting battle. Of Rodriguez has a 64% takedown defense overall. It was much higher before she lost to Verna Jandiroba in her last fight. She was just controlled that whole fight. Jandiroba was just much better than Marina on that day. But Waterson only landed 1 of her 7 takedowns against Rodriguez in their first fight. Marina generally has pretty good takedown defense. I think that's it. If she's defending Waterson's takedowns, Michelle has no chance to win this fight.
Yeah. What do you think about Marina finding a submission in this fight?
I've got it at 3.96% per my model, so I'm guessing it's going to have to be a pretty high number. It'd have to be plus 2,500 if you want to take it.
All right, well, that settles that.
Well, it's just kind of tough because these ladies are decision machines. I've got this fight 86.5% to go the distance, so almost 90% of the time I've got this fight going the distance. I will say, when you have a fight like this that is supposed to go the distance, there is value in the underdog at the larger number, just because the sample size is really tiny. Waterson could have 2 rounds in this fight, like the 4th round in her first one, and she won that round with her wrestling. Right, she was able to get on top. She didn't do very much, but it was just control time throughout the round. You only have 3 rounds this time, so if you get 2 of them, you win the fight. That said, I don't think Waterson-Gomez is going to make my card, man. And do you have a fight goes the distance or over available from some sketchy sports book yet? Because let me think about it. Because I think it is going to be juiced to the gills. I'd be surprised if it was short of -300.
Fight goes the distance minus 325.
Yeah. And I'm actually showing value on that number when I've got it at 86.5%, right? So
yeah.
I've got it minus
Yeah, I mean, Rodriguez by decisions minus 180. I mean, what a joke.
Yeah, and that's almost where like Waterson, based on her money line by decision, is probably like plus 350, something like that. I mean, like I might take a small dart at that.
Bro, Rodriguez by submissions plus 2200.
Okay, I mean, so you're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
It's almost like these guys use mathematical algorithms to make the odds too. And FanDuel typically gives you the longest number on long shot props like that. 100%. Maybe you dive into individual rounds. And Rodriguez, pretty good jiu-jitsu. She was able to not get submitted by Jandy Hoba, right? She was able to not get submitted by Amanda Lemos. She came back to knock her out in the second round. Waterson-Gomez is just really tough. She's just very durable. She just went the distance with Luana Pinheiro, who was throwing bombs the entire time down in your area in South Beach. You were at that card. And it was a pretty close fight when most people expected Pinheiro to rout her. So the value's probably on her. I don't care. I'd rather this fight not be in my life again if we can move on to the next one. So
I'm gonna still take a look at the submission prop though.
It's interesting. I think those fun ways are the ways to bet that. But we start to hand out a little bit higher up in the rankings here. Co-main event. Very interested for your perspective on this one because I've got a clear lean as day. Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell back. Favored over Dan 50K Ige, one of the true professionals and agent in the sport. Ige with a little bit of a renaissance on a 2-fight winning streak. Mitchell, of course, just took that tough setback to Ilya Topuria by I believe that was a submission for Topuria. Do you have a specific lean in this fight? Because I absolutely do.
Yeah, so Mitchell, I believe, is over minus 200 now.
He may very well. I've got minus 210 from earlier today on FanDuel Sportsbook.
Yeah, I mean, that has taken a lot of steam. I mean, very quickly.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. I will not be shocked at all if Bryce Mitchell wins 2 rounds to 1 with takedowns and wins a decision in this fight. Yeah. Ige's pretty durable guy. But with all that said, if you just factor in all the extracurricular stuff going on in Bryce Mitchell's life with his girlfriend and all the things he has going on. And I think that on the feet, this isn't that great of a matchup. Like, I think the Ige is way better. I think Bryce Mitchell catching, who did he catch right before the Topuria
Damon
fight?
Jackson.
No, Barboza.
Did he knock out Barboza in that fight?
No, but he landed a clean overhand right that put him down. He won like a unanimous decision.
That's right.
And that was like fool's gold to me because when I saw that, I was like, this dude's for real. Like, you got that striking power and pairing that with the wrestling. And I like, to me, that was one of the main reasons I backed him against Topuria and looked like an idiot. But no, I mean, look, I think Dan Ige, family guy in the peak of his career, entering his prime.
Yeah.
And I think is a good underdog here. Now, with that said, like, I do think Bryce by decision could make sense, but based on the number. But I think there's a world where Ige could just do more damage overall in this fight.
Yeah, my model's a little bit more in line with you than I am. I really like Bryce Mitchell here. I wish I could have got that minus 170 number because it's over that. The only fight between Ige, or between where you were with Mitchell against Barboza and now, was the Topuria fight. And I think Ilya Topuria is the second best featherweight in the world at this point because of his hands and because of his grappling. And Bryce didn't have anything for Topuria in the stand-up, and it clearly drained his confidence. Now, there was all that jargon Bryce said about being sick entering the fight, not being 100%. The excuses start flying when you lose. But Mitchell has completely dominated everyone before that with his wrestling. And the thing is, that's where we've seen Ige beaten in the rankings before. 9 takedowns to Movsar Evloev. Evloev, probably a better overall fighter than Mitchell, but as far as ground for ground, Bryce Mitchell's been very, very dominant, right?
You think Mitchell's takedowns are better than his, though?
Evloev?
Yeah.
I think they're equally skilled wrestlers and grapplers.
Okay.
Evloev's a better striker, though. Much better striker. Evloev can actually pretty good combinations, good efficiency numbers. Now, Mitchell did drop Barboza that one time. I think it was a little bit of an ambush, right? Where Barboza was mostly worried about the takedown entry and then he got caught, right? But like, The thing about Dan Ige, never been finished in UFC, never been knocked out, never been submitted.
Right.
And so, I wonder if that gives me a longer number here on Mitchell by submission, just because he's been so dominant. Now, at this higher level, he hasn't been able to find submission finishes. Wasn't able to submit Fili, wasn't able to submit Barboza. So it's a little bit concerning if I was going to bet that. But if I got it at a decent number, I'd think about it. I just don't think Ige, with a 56% takedown defense, can stop Mitchell when a lot of guys with higher marks haven't been able to.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. I understand where you're going with that, but I almost feel like fighting Evelev. Like I almost feel like he could be better based off of that loss, right? Yeah. And then he went and finished Damon Jackson right after that, and then he beat the brakes off of Nate. He wasn't able to finish him, but he had a lot of success in that fight. Oh, this is a tough fight for me. It really, really is. I want to see what that round 2 and 3 submission prop is for Bryce, just out of curiosity. But I almost feel like you could take Ige by KO or Bryce by decision here.
Yeah, some of those dual chance markets could make themselves available for sure. And like Ige is a guy that I really do have a lot of respect for. Pretty solid marks, 57% striking defense. He does a little bit of everything well. I just think sometimes he gets physically overwhelmed by these larger guys. But you mentioned about Bryce's personal life. By the way, we had a comment about what was going on with Bryce Mitchell's girlfriend. Apparently, she destroyed all of his fruit trees in his yard while he's actually traveled to Vegas for this fight. So he was kind of throwing it back, saying, "Don't go to her tattoo shop here." We've all been through a breakup that was suboptimal, so it kind of sucks that that's unveiling on the main stage. But Mitchell's a guy that if I don't have a superior defensive grappler, a guy like Topuria, 92% takedown defense, I generally lean on Bryce because he has been dominant, over 10 minutes of control in his last 3 wins. Like, the dude doesn't let people back to their feet.
Yeah. He scares me, though. I think all the intangibles, I think the emotion, the stuff going on outside, like in his personal life, I think the pure delusion, too, from him a little bit. Like, I think just all the stuff you hear about, right? Like the earth is flat, like all these different things. I know that you probably shouldn't factor that into an MMA fight, but and then all the excuses when he lost to Topuria, like, he scares me as a over 2-1 favorite here. Yeah. I just think Dan Ige, after getting out wrestled, put together 2 really good performances against solid guys, and I think is in the peak and prime of his career. Yeah. Whereas I can't say that about Bryce. There's so much uncertainty there with everything else going on.
It's an interesting fight. It's a good co-main for sure.
Yeah.
So with that, let's move on to our main event here, which is Maddie, you and I we've tried really hard not to talk to each other before the fights about like substantial picks here. Mm-hmm. This is one, again, I see a lot of people on both sides of this fight. I think there are good arguments for both of these guys, and lightweight is just so freaking deep that you get these guys that when they match up, it's probably not going to be a rout. And I don't think this one will be either, with Rafael Fiziev coming off that bloody loss to Justin Gaethje over in March in London, taking on Mateusz Gamrot, who really took a bit of a risk to take Jalen Turner on short notice and was able to squash him in a pretty high-profile pay-per-view in Vegas. Kind of washed that taste out of his mouth when the Beneil Dariush fight last year didn't go his way. These guys have beaten a lot of great contenders, so they're both excellent. Interested to hear who you're liking in this one.
I love Fiziev in this fight. I absolutely love him. Here's the difference between him and Jalen Turner. Like, Jalen Turner is, I think, really good, but we talked about it a little bit earlier on the show. His length and the leverage, Gamrot was able to just spam those takedowns. Fiziev is a guy, like, it reminds me of a Volk, right? Like, he's shorter, got good center of gravity.
Yep.
And the problem is Gamrot can get the takedowns. I'm not saying he can't get the takedowns, but this is a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
Like, if you back Gamrot here, you're going to have to hold your breath for 25 minutes, because even if Gamrot gets takedowns and control time, every time the new round starts, this fight is back on the feet. And the combinations and the speed of Fiziev, I think, are too much for Gamrot on the feet. And Gamrot he's been knocked down by Beneil Dariush in that second or third round.
Yep.
I have a feeling this guy's chinny. Like, I think he's a little bit chinny. And I think you don't want to be chinny against Fiziev in this fight. So it comes down to one simple thing for me. I think Fiziev is the finishing ability and I don't think Gamrot does on the ground against Fiziev. So I think that through a 25-minute fight, I think Fiziev's going to find the knockout on the feet at some point, whether it's early or late in the fight. We saw it against RDA, right? Like, he got that 5th round finish. It was kind of a controversial TKO. I mean, I think he hurt him pretty badly. But I just think that eventually he's going to find the combination and really hurt Gamrot on the feet.
That's very interesting. So I was a little bit split before I ran my model on this fight, and some of the stats uncovered for it are very interesting in that I like Gamrot here quite a bit.
Wow, we're on opposite sides a lot today.
Yeah, and I love when we're on opposite sides, especially in high profile, because you guys get to determine who makes the better case here. But interesting, I see Fiziev as a worse overall mixed martial artist than Jalen Turner, which I think is going to be blasphemous for a lot of people. Turner's got dangerous submissions. He's got a little bit of takedown game himself, and he's very, very, very dangerous on the feet. Gamrot, I don't know if he'll have a lot of success with takedowns specifically. Fiziev, excellent, 90% takedown defense, and I think that's why Gamrot's the underdog here, is because he's more of a takedown guy. Fiziev has stood tall against most takedown threats. But I think the difference here could be the gas tank. Rafael Fiziev got a little tired in that 3rd round against Bobby Green. Got a little tired in that 3rd round against Justin Gaethje. He dropped the 3rd round in both of those fights. And Gamrot is a guy that weaponizes his cardio. We saw that against Arman Tsarukyan, where Tsarukyan was the better guy through the first couple of rounds of that fight. And Gamrot just kept coming and coming and coming, and the takedowns got easier and easier. I think he's almost like a lightweight Merab to me a little bit, where he just never stops coming. Attempts over 14 takedowns per 15 minutes, and it is nonstop. And when you look at defensive responsibility, I think sometimes Fiziev is there to be hit. 48% striking defense, whereas Gamrot is at a very responsible 60%. I don't think this fight is overly entertaining because Gamrot is going to ultimately have to make it ugly to win it. He's going to have to push him against the cage, may not be able to secure takedowns, win a lot with control time and clinch elbows and things like that. But I love his cardio in a 5-rounder when we've seen Fiziev slow down before. I've got Gamrot 59.1% to win this fight and 79.1% for this fight to go the full distance. I love the over more so than I feel good about Gamrot because Fiziev could steal rounds as the striker, right? He could be the one doing damage if Gamrot is not responsible, isn't clearly controlling the exchanges. Fiziev will be the striker that's doing damage with points. But I love the over in this fight, and I think Gamrot at that price is decently attractive.
I mean, look, it's hard to argue with data, but the eye test, I thought Gamrot was getting a little bit tired late in the Jalen Turner fight, and that was a 3-round fight. And
he was on short notice, though. And
Turner did hurt him at times on the feet, but Neil Dariush absolutely hurt him. I couldn't believe he didn't get that finish in the 3rd round. I got to believe that Fiziev is inspired by being pretty close in a fight with Gaethje, who just knocked out Dustin Poirier and is probably next in line eventually for a title fight. Yeah. I think Fiziev is right there. He's at 30 years old, good low center of gravity here. This fight scares the hell out of me to go the distance.
Interesting.
It really does, because when you look at stylistically, like Gamrot, if he's going to spam wrestle, that's going to tire out one of the two guys, like either or. And then every time the new round starts, Fiziev is back on the feet and as dangerous as it gets. So like the fight to go all 5 rounds here scares the hell out of me. I don't have no idea what the price point is though.
Well, I think a little bit about Fiziev is that his power might be overrated. He did stop Moicano quickly in the 1st round, but he's got just a 0.40% knockdown rate. Gamrot is at 0.38%. So both of these guys are below 0.5% for a knockdown rate, which is the percentage of strikes that result in a knockdown. The only guys at lightweight with a lower knockdown rate in the rankings than these two, Grant Dawson, Rafael Dos Anjos. So they've got, both of them statistically have low end power. And I think that's why my model is pulling the goes the distance well, because Fiziev has also never been submitted in UFC, and Gamrot's not a very high submission volume guy. So like I really do feel like that this fight, it will be uncomfortable because there is power here. By the way, Gamrot's got a couple of drops in UFC as well. He's got decent power, all things considered. it won't be a fun ride to the over, but I do think it's the right side.
Yeah, it's looking at like minus 120 or so for it to not go the distance.
About a pick 'em sounds right.
I mean, it's slight plus money, I think, for it to go the whole way, which I think you would need significant plus money to sweat out 25 minutes here on the fight to go the distance. That's just my opinion without any data whatsoever. But no, it just scares me. I think again, Fiziev, if Fiziev gets a knockout, do you agree that it would be early on versus later? Because I'm not sure, because he did it against RDA late.
The thing about the RDA fight with Fiziev is that RDA actually took a really bad gameplay where he didn't really make Fiziev work. He didn't really make him tap into his gas tank. It was kind of a low volume fight. Where I felt Fiziev was pretty fresh in round 5 in that fight, right? And just because he didn't have to do a lot. Yeah. I want to ask you a question, though. I want to ask you a question. Who is the better mixed martial artist, Arman Tsarukyan or Rafael Fiziev?
I mean, Tsarukyan's more well-rounded for sure. But I think striking, there's no comparison. I mean, styles make
he's the better striker than Tsarukyan?
Yes.
Oh, I think Tsarukyan's a better striker. That's very interesting.
I mean, the data might prove what you think, but I'm telling you that the combinations this guy puts together, like, I don't think he needs crazy power to drop Gamrot. I think it's more about the speed and accuracy of his combinations that can find the chin of Gamrot. And that's the way I look at this fight is if Gamrot is not taking him down every single minute of this fight, I really do think, I mean, when I watched the Justin Gaethje fight, I had Gaethje money line in that fight, and he closed as a dog there. And I was scared shitless after that first round. I was like, this dude is so fast. Like, the speed of this guy on the feet is incredible. And even Gaethje said it after the fight. And, Justin ended up edging out the decision, but it was a very, very close fight. And he even went to Fiziev, think of it this way. Fiziev is the one guy in Justin's entire career that he actually went to the wrestling to beat. And he did it late in the 3rd round, which is crazy.
Gaethje was winning the stand-up in the 3rd round as well. I think you and I were both on Gaethje there, right?
Yeah, I was, and I had a late KO for him too, and I couldn't get that done on the spring. Yeah, we hit on the money line.
I will say this. I think this is where I get what you got me with Cyril Gane over Sergey Spivak a couple of weeks ago. We've been agreeing a lot on the main event since. Yeah. I think I get it back here. I think Gamrot wins. I think Gamrot wins, and it's because Fiziev is a guy that we know is a one-dimensional striker. I will leave my argument this. He has a negative 0.11 striking success rate. So Fiziev, over the course of his UFC career, has taken more damage than he's put out. Combinations aside, that's cold hard data, my friend.
Yeah, but Bobby Green is in there, right? Bobby Green outstruck him 143 to 104.
Yeah,
I guess Fiziev landed the bigger shots. He outstruck Brad Riddell. He outstruck RDA. He outstruck Moicano. He outstruck Jacasey. He outstruck every fighter he's ever fought except Gaethje and Bobby Green. Those aren't bad guys to be outstruck by.
Yeah. Gamrot's a good striker. I think he's a bit underrated going into this fight. He definitely prefers to operate in the clinch, but Gamrot, I think Gamrot hurt Guillaume Cute-Lotze in his first fight, who's a guy that's pretty interesting as well.
He got this. The only thing that concerns me with Gamrot, right? Yeah. Outstruck 59 to 33 by Beneil Dariush.
Dariush is really good.
I know he's good. He's good, but Beneil didn't land a single takedown in that fight.
Dariush is a better striker than Fiziev is.
Oh my God, that's crazy to say.
I'm sorry. Like, defense is part of it. I think Rafael leaves himself open a lot.
Yeah, you think Gamrot? So what you're saying is Gamrot KO prop has some value.
No, Gamrot by decision will be a prop that I guarantee is part of my full card on Saturday. Gamrot by decision, guaranteed.
I mean, what would the number need to be for the KO prop to have value though?
So I've got Gamrot at 9.33% to find a knockout, which I imagine is mostly like a TKO type of thing.
Need like plus 11.
Plus 1,000. Plus 1,000. Plus 1,000.
Let's take a look. Gamrot plus 800. But the late props, I think it makes it interesting there, right? Because the late TKO ground and pounds live then.
I will say I really like Gamrot here. I would look round 4, round 5 as kind of my supplemental darts, because if I'm right about his cardio melting Fiziev, this could be a situation where Gamrot's just pounding away and Fiziev's got nothing left in the tank.
Right.
I think that's you either think it's going to be that or Fiziev drops Gamrot because we've seen his vulnerabilities with that. I think the Chinny argument you have is very, very fair. He was dropped by Dariush. I don't think he responded well to some of Turner's punches as well. I think he's a little bit chinny. Good striking defense overall, but doesn't love to get hit.
Yeah, I want to go rewatch those fights here the next few days. Really on both of these guys.
Yeah.
Fiziev hasn't fought since he fought Gaethje in March of this year. Gamrot, March as well. So both these guys have the same exact turnaround time here. I thought he lost the Arman Sarukian fight too. I thought it was very close.
It was very, very close. I had it 48-47 Sarukian as well, but that's kind of like last week's main event where it's almost hard to say a fighter lost because it was so close. Like it was just a meaningless level of difference between Sarukian, Gamrot, and Grasso Shevchenko. Like it's the same thing. I don't know European odds very well to know how good at 188 is.
Yeah. All right. The gens want a
parlay
parlay.
time.
So I think we have to give it. This is going to be hard for us to agree on a parlay in this. So
I don't think so.
Well, just because we're on some opposite sides, but no, we'll get it done. So we're 1 of 3 on parlays. We were up going in the last week. We lost on the parlay for the sake of transparency. We're down 0.2 of a unit on the year on our parlays.
Yeah.
So we're going to go up money this week. We have to build one right now. Trying to think based on everything we went over if there was a consensus.
I think we got to throw Jake Collier in there at plus 126. I think that was you and I's strongest agreement, right?
It's not that I don't like it. Yeah. It's that for a parlay piece, like I feel like we got to see one go through the hoop. You know.
How about that? How about this? Super Chalk Rodriguez Waterson over 2.5.
Let me see what's even available on FanDuel. That's the problem. Yeah. It's going to be tough. We're going to have to build it somewhere if we're going to do totals.
Okay.
I'm down to put Jake Collier in. We're just going to have to put some crazy chalk in the other two legs.
I think Rodriguez Waterson is chalk, and I've got it 86.1% to go the distance. Like, I know you like Rodriguez by sub though, which is probably what's holding.
No, I didn't say that. I asked you that. She only has one submission. It's like 22-1. I was just curious.
She's such a point fighder, like through a point fighter.
They honestly both are.
Yeah. I honestly like Ige Mitchell a lot to go the distance as well. I don't know if you like Ige, if you think he'd get it done inside the distance. But like I think a total there would be interesting. Mm-hmm. And if you've got to build this on some random sketch site, FanDuel doesn't have the odds available, so no big deal.
All right, let's see what we can do here. All right, we're going with Jake Collier.
Okay.
Plus 120 on this site. The over-under in the Dan Ige fight, over 2.5 is minus 225. That's crazy.
This is exactly, that's the type of one we should toss into a parlay. I feel so good about it. What'd you say it was, minus 225?
Yeah.
I've got it at, I think less than that, actually.
I would rather throw in the over the Waterson fight than that.
Yeah, I've actually got Ige Mitchell at minus 180 to go the distance.
Here we go.
I don't have value.
Over 2.5, minus 350 in the Waterson Rodriguez fight.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good leg.
All right, so we got two legs.
We could go super. I mean, we could throw Malkoun in there.
Problem is I just hate his money line. Like
me too.
I'd rather throw him in inside the distance, but that's kind of risky for this.
I bet inside the distance is going to pay near to even money when props are released on FanDuel Sportsbook. It's not going to be as short as you'd think for such a heavy.
Now, how about this?
Yeah,
fight to not go the distance in that fight, minus 140. We could just throw that in as the third leg because that even gives us the ability for Brundage to get around.
Yeah, because Brundage I actually had a guy, like a film guy, tell me, he's like, watch Brundage end up getting a first round knockout against Malkoun and then declaring himself a reborn guy when he's just the same trash fighter with a trash IQ. So, so I like that under a lot, actually. I don't have the data there to confirm that, but I like that under a lot. We could also go Fletcher battle under if you felt better about that.
I like the Malkoun fight to go under.
Yeah, I like that too. -140 is a good number there, by the way, too. Because then you pretty much have the whole win condition for the underdog. Cody Brundage isn't going to outpoint Malkoun. It's not going to happen. And then Malkoun searching for his first UFC finish against a guy with cardio issues who's given up previously. I like that a lot, Matty. What is Collier and those two, the over in Rodriguez and the under in Malkoun pay?
Let me take a look here. I'm struggling.
By the way, if you're ever wondering why FanDuel delays releasing lines, this is not me speaking from experience or anything, but I imagine it's because of degens like Maddie and I that sit around refreshing the page waiting for them to come out right away and pounce.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Jake Collier +120, leg one. Okay. Over 2.5 rounds. Marina Rodriguez fight.
Okay.
-350, leg two.
Okay.
And what was the fight to not go the distance? Which one was it?
It was Malkoun Brundage.
And Malkoun Brundage to not go the distance, -140, leg three.
That's got to pay like 3-1, right?
100 pays 380.
Yep. Consider it done. Plus 3.6 units already.
I like that.
I think we got cute with Kevin Holland last week, whereas both of us had a lot of respect for JDM. He's probably wasn't a parlay piece. I think Muhammad Usman is terrible, dude. I think he is awful. He was getting lit up by Zach Pauga, and thanks for putting that in chat, Maddie, so everyone can see that. Pays about 380, depending on where you can get it. Props should be available on FanDuel on Friday, so if you wanna go there.
I like that a lot. If you guys are watching, screenshot that parlay. That's going to bring us back from the dead here. Plus 380. I like that a lot.
If you pounced on an early number and got Brundage Malkoun under at plus money, that's a great bet. That is a great bet. You can find some great bets like that if you go early.
Yeah, that's wild to me. There it is. If you guys still need it, go ahead and screenshot the parlay. This is the one that's going to put us back in the green after last week.
Yeah, and then we'll have a little margin for error to get creative, have some fun.
Yeah, 100%. So I love it. All right, bro. Well, appreciate you jumping on.
Absolutely.
I had a blast.
Yeah,
I think we're going to go up big this week. We disagree on a few fights, but that's why we have the rest of the week to study footage, put out our official cards. I just think at the end of the day, the main event, I feel like we're both really confident on that one. I think the Bryce Mitchell fight, I'm not as confident, but I just think Fiziev is different on the feet, even though the data might not suggest it.
Interesting. I think Gamrot's cardio is different, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's a great main event at the end of the day, and we are split up, but this is what happens after the show, by the way. I texted Maddie on Friday. I'm like, maybe Josh Fremd. I'm looking at Josh Fremd. I'm overthinking Josh Fremd. Josh Fremd ended up getting his butt kicked. So, we both change our opinions on these fights as we watch more film, as we talk to more guys that we respect. So make sure to stay tuned to Twitter so you see Maddie's betting card. I put out my plays over on FanDuel Research, FanDuel.com/research/UFC. You can get our end of the week picks to get that locked in on your card as props come out. But for my man, the long shot legend, Maddie Tanner, Austin Swaim, we are out. We'll see you next Tuesday to preview yet another UFC card.